We've got two stories this week that illustrate how progressives have been screwed over in two different states, Maine and Vermont. Now, I've previously talked about how these states both took efforts to enhance freedom and democracy. However, democracy was subverted and progressives were screwed over this week. So when it comes to Vermont, just last week actually, I talked about how their legislature became the first in the country to pass a bill legalizing recreational marijuana. However, their so-called pot skeptic governor decided to veto the bill. According to Raw Story, Vermont's governor on Wednesday halted, at least temporarily, efforts to become the 9th state to legalize the recreational use of marijuana, but offered to work with state legislators to resolve what he cited as the bill's shortcomings. In vetoing the measure to decriminalize possession of small amounts of the drug for adults and pave the way for a regulated market in the state, Republican Governor Phil Scott stressed he was not philosophically opposed to the concept, which he said he views through a libertarian lens. But in an effort to get it right, he said the bill needs to improve protections for children and motorists. Scott said the bill should make clear that there will be no change in current penalties for giving or selling the drug to minors under 21 or near schools, and it should have stiffer penalties for smoking marijuana while driving or in front of children. To me, that is a pathetic reason to subvert democracy and veto the bill, because if you were paying attention, then you would know that in states that have legalized recreational marijuana, states like Colorado, usage of pot among minors actually decreased once it became legal. So because you were uninformed, you decided to unilaterally subvert democracy. Not okay. Not okay. So we'll give them a chance. Go ahead and work on the bill's shortcomings. But what you did was a cop-out, and your excuse is pathetic. We don't believe you. Now, when it comes to Maine, in November, they actually voted by referendum to institute a ranked choice voting system. Now, this is very important. It's maybe one of the first and most important steps to break up the two-party duopoly, because this allows voters to rank their choices. So, for example, in 2016, if you supported Jill Stein, but you wanted to vote for her and make sure that Donald Trump didn't win, you could make Jill Stein your number one choice, and if she didn't get enough votes, then your vote would be ranked and then transferred over to Hillary Clinton. So this would remove the spoiler effect, basically. However, this was ruled unconstitutional by a court in Maine, and now the fate of this new law is in jeopardy. And you would think that Republicans and Democrats would be in support of ranked choice voting, because they constantly yell about how you can't vote third party, you can't vote libertarian or green, because then you're going to be wasting your vote, because this will create the spoiler effect. You'll vote for your number one choice, but you are making it more likely that your last choice will be elected. So you can't do that. So you would think that by making sure that the spoiler effect goes away, by instituting a ranked choice voting, they would be in support of that. But of course they're not, because if ranked choice voting is the law of the land in Maine, then they can no longer beat us over the heads and hold us hostage with the two parties. They can't say, fall in line and support Democrats or support Republicans, otherwise, the other team is going to win. They can't do that anymore, and they want that leverage over us, and this is why Democrats and Republicans don't support ranked choice voting, which is contradictory to what they tell us, because people like Bill Maher, for example, they say, you have to vote for Hillary Clinton. By voting for Jill Stein, you are effectively supporting Donald Trump. But when it comes time for us to make sure that that argument doesn't apply to us anymore, when we have ranked choice voting so we can rank our choices and not have the spoiler effects, they tell us no, they shoot it down. They say it's unconstitutional. And if Maine really wants this, then the legislature of Maine is going to have to amend the Constitution. So this was supposed to be on the books in Maine by 2018. Now, that law is threatened. Now, BDN Maine explains, Maine's High Court said Tuesday that the state's first-in-the-nation ranked choice voting system is unconstitutional, throwing the voter-approved law into jeopardy ahead of the key 2018 campaign when it was supposed to be implemented. In a unanimous 44-page opinion issued Tuesday, the Maine Supreme Judicial Court's 7 justices agreed with Attorney General Janet Mills, Secretary of State Matthew Dunlap, and Republican legislators that the system violates a provision of the Maine Constitution that allows elections to be won by pluralities, and not necessarily majorities of votes. But Maine's history of plurality elections that covered the referendum approved by 52% of voters in 2016 and the non-binding opinion from the High Court cast doubt that Maine will pioneer the change in its gubernatorial, congressional, and legislative elections. The legislature and Dunlap's office haven't moved to implement the law amid the uncertainty around its legality. Now, the legislature will be under pressure either to throw out the law or amend the Constitution to allow it. A majority of people in Maine voted for this. This doesn't have anything to do with civil rights. This is about voting and democracy. So to undermine the will of the people in Maine is inherently undemocratic. So these are two things, marijuana and ranked choice voting, that I look at as crucial. And we see the domino effect with weed, because, it took a couple of states, Colorado and Washington, to get the ball rolling. And Maine, they were a pioneer, and this could have started a domino effect where Maine started ranked choice, and then other states carried it out and implemented it. So this is incredibly disappointing to me when I got this news. Let's hope that the legislators actually do the bidding of the people in Vermont, of Maine, and Vermont. And if they don't, vote their asses out of office.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.